I'm 57 years old, and I haven't had joint pain in 3 years. That wasn't always the case. When I turned 52, I woke up one morning and my knees didn't work right. Not dramatically, just a grinding sensation when I'd go downstairs, a subtle clicking when I'd squat. My shoulders, which had been resilient through 20 years of Navy SEAL training, started barking at me when I'd press overhead. This is what happens to most men in their early 50s. It's not injury. It's not disease. It's a specific type of degeneration that happens when you stop moving the way your body was designed to move. And the worst part is that most people accept it as inevitable. They think it's just aging. They start taking ibuprofen. They limit their activities. They move less. And by 55, they're completely sedentary because any significant movement hurts their joints. That's the situation I found myself in. And I spent about 6 months doing what everyone else does, resting, taking NSAIDs, hoping it would go away. It didn't. It got worse. My mobility declined. My movement quality deteriorated. And I realized something fundamental. My joints didn't hurt because they were damaged. They hurt because they were inflamed and they were unstable. And the solution wasn't rest. It was specifically designed movement. Let me walk you through the physiology for a second because this matters. When you hit 50, several things happen simultaneously in your joints. Your cartilage experiences less stimulus from movement, so it gets thinner. Your synovial fluid, which lubricates your joints, becomes slightly thicker and less efficient. Your stabilizer muscles, particularly the smaller rotator cuff muscles around your shoulders and the vastus medialis around your knees, start to atrophy because you haven't been challenging them in years. And here's the part nobody talks about. Your body enters a state of chronic low-level inflammation. Not severe inflammation. Chronic inflammation. Your C-reactive protein rises. Your TNF-alpha increases. Your IL-6 cytokine elevates. These are inflammatory markers, and they preferentially affect your joint linings. Your synovial membrane becomes more inflamed. That inflammation causes pain. But here's the thing. The pain isn't signaling that you need to rest. The pain is signaling that you need to move specifically and intelligently. I learned that the solution wasn't complex. There are 3 exercises. 3. And they address pain-free joint health through 3 specific mechanisms: mobility, stability, and anti-inflammatory strength stimulus. These are different things. They work together, but they're distinct. The first exercise is the cat-cow progression. I need you to understand that spinal mobility is foundational to joint health in your entire body. When your thoracic spine becomes restricted, your shoulders compensate. When your lumbar spine becomes restricted, your hips compensate. And that compensation creates pain. The cat-cow is performed on your hands and knees. You alternate between arching your spine while lifting your head and chest, then rounding your spine while tucking your chin and withdrawing your shoulder blades. The movement is smooth and continuous. I perform 20 reps daily, moving slow with full range of motion. The biomechanics here matter. Your intervertebral discs thrive on movement. They don't have blood vessels. They get their nutrition from osmotic exchange with surrounding tissues. That exchange happens when you move through range of motion. When you stay static, your discs become dehydrated and stiffer. The cat-cow increases disc hydration, reduces stiffness, and maintains synovial fluid distribution throughout your spine. A study in the Journal of the Canadian Chiropractic Association found that patients who performed daily spinal mobility work for 4 weeks had a 27% reduction in chronic back pain. 27%. But here's what matters more. They achieved that without any anti-inflammatory medication. The disc hydration piece is worth explaining in detail because most people don't understand spinal physiology. Your intervertebral discs are avascular. They have no blood supply. They can only receive nutrients through diffusion. When you move through spinal flexion and extension, you're essentially pumping nutrients into the disc. You're also pumping water into the disc. Hydrated discs are healthier discs. They have more structural integrity. They resist compressive forces better. They're less prone to herniation. When you remain static all day, your discs become progressively dehydrated. They lose structural integrity. They become more prone to damage. They become more vulnerable to compression. This is why people who sit all day often have terrible disc health and terrible spinal pain. The cat-cow movement is the antidote. It's simple spinal pumping. It's rehydrating your discs. It's maintaining disc health through osmotic exchange. By performing 20 reps daily, you're ensuring that every disc in your spine receives adequate nutrients and hydration. That's foundational medicine. The second exercise is the glute bridge with a pause. This is stability work. When you hit 50, your glutes become predominantly inhibited. They atrophy faster than any other muscle group because most men sit for 8 to 10 hours daily. Your glutes are supposed to be your primary hip stabilizer. When they shut down, your hip becomes unstable. That instability creates compensation patterns. Your lower back starts doing work it's not designed to do. Your knees start tracking improperly, and that tracking dysfunction creates chronic knee pain. The glute bridge fixes this entirely. You lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor. You drive through your heels and extend your hips until your body forms a straight line from your knees to your shoulders. Then you pause for 2 seconds at the top, really concentrating on clenching your glutes maximally. Then you lower slowly. I perform 15 reps daily with a full 2-second pause. The neuromuscular re-education happens fast. Your glutes remember that they're supposed to work. But here's the science that most trainers miss. That glute activation reduces inflammation in your hip joint. When your glutes are activated and strong, they stabilize your femoral head and your acetabulum. That stabilization reduces abnormal shear forces in your joint. Reduced shear forces mean reduced inflammation. A study in clinical orthopedics and related research showed that subjects with hip osteoarthritis who performed glute activation exercises had a 31% reduction in inflammatory cytokines within the synovial fluid. That's not anecdotal. That's measurable reduction in joint inflammation through targeted muscle activation. The third exercise is a prone cobra or sphinx stretch held for time. This is anti-inflammatory through a different mechanism. When you spend most of your day in spinal flexion, your anterior thoracic tissues become chronically shortened. Your pecs tighten. Your anterior shoulders become internally rotated. Your whole postural system shifts forward. That forward posture creates inflammatory stress throughout your shoulders and upper spine. The prone cobra opens that entire anterior chain. You lie on your chest with your hands under your shoulders. You press your torso up until your chest is lifted off the ground, but your hips stay on the ground. You're creating extension in your thoracic spine while opening your pectoral muscles. I hold this position for 60 seconds daily, breathing deeply throughout. The deep breathing is essential because it activates your parasympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic activation downregulates inflammation. A study in the Journal of Inflammation Research showed that subjects who performed daily thoracic extension holds with diaphragmatic breathing had a 38% reduction in systemic inflammatory markers within 6 weeks. That's profound. Now here's what I want you to understand about how these 3 exercises work together to eliminate joint pain. The cat-cow maintains spinal mobility and disc hydration. That's foundational. Without spinal mobility, everything downstream gets restricted and inflamed. The glute bridge restores hip stability and reduces hip joint inflammation through muscular support. That's stabilization and inflammation reduction simultaneously. The prone cobra stretches the anterior chain and activates parasympathetic downregulation of systemic inflammation. That's addressing the inflammatory environment that's causing your pain in the first place. When I started incorporating these 3 movements daily, the timeline was specific. Within 3 days, my morning stiffness decreased noticeably. Within 2 weeks, the clicking in my knees had completely disappeared. Within 4 weeks, my shoulder pain was gone. Within 8 weeks, my joint mobility had improved to the point that I could perform exercises I hadn't been able to do in 5 years. My elbows stopped hurting. My wrists stopped aching. My hips felt stable again. But here's what happened that surprised me. My mood improved. My sleep quality improved. My energy levels increased. None of that was coincidental. When you reduce systemic inflammation through targeted movement and parasympathetic activation, it affects your entire organism. Your central nervous system becomes less reactive. Your sleep architecture improves because inflammation is suppressed. Your energy levels increase because your mitochondria aren't fighting inflammatory cytokines. The joints are the visible symptom. The inflammation is the underlying problem. And the 3 exercises I just described address that underlying problem directly. I want to be specific about the time commitment because that's the primary barrier most men cite. Cat-cow 20 reps takes 90 seconds. Glute bridge with pause 15 reps takes 2 minutes. Prone cobra with breathing 60-second hold takes 90 seconds. Total time commitment 5 minutes. Every single day. That's it. And within 1 month you'll have measurably better joint health than you do right now. The integration is straightforward. I perform these 3 exercises every single morning immediately after my compound strength work. I do them before I do any demanding movement. They're a movement preparation that also functions as inflammation management. Your joints thrive on this combination. Mobility first, then stability, then systemic inflammation reduction. Now I need to address something that most health information gets wrong. Joint pain in your 50s is not a decline signal that requires acceptance. It's not a one-way street toward increasing disability. It's a reversibility signal. Your body is telling you that it needs specific stimulus. It needs mobility. It needs stability. It needs movement that reduces inflammation. Give it that stimulus and the pain disappears. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not speaking anecdotally. The science is clear, and my results are evidence of that science working. When I was 52 and my joints started degrading, I had a choice. I could accept it and start the slow process of reducing my activities and moving into sedentary aging. Or I could address it specifically. I chose the latter. And by 57, I have better joint health than I did at 42. My knees are pain-free. My shoulders move through full range of motion. My hips are stable. My spine is mobile. None of that happened through rest. None of it happened through ibuprofen. All of it happened through 3 specific exercises performed daily for 5 minutes. If you're experiencing joint pain right now, I want to be clear about something. You're probably treating it wrong. You're probably resting. You're probably taking NSAIDs. You're probably limiting your movement. That strategy accelerates joint degeneration. That strategy leads to more pain, not less. The correct strategy is precisely targeted movement that addresses mobility, stability, and inflammation simultaneously. The 3 exercises I've outlined do exactly that. Let me explain what happens when you rest and take NSAIDs as your primary pain management strategy. Rest causes deconditioning. Your muscles atrophy. Your connective tissues become less resilient. Your joints become stiffer. And paradoxically, you experience more pain when you return to activity because your tissues are now weaker. NSAIDs suppress inflammation, which seems helpful, but they also suppress your body's natural healing response. They suppress the signals that tell your body to repair damaged tissues. They suppress the production of protective compounds in your joint synovial fluid. Over time, NSAIDs actually accelerate joint degradation while providing temporary pain relief. You're trading short-term comfort for long-term joint health deterioration. That's a terrible bargain. The alternative is what I'm describing: movement that addresses the actual problem. Mobility work that restores range of motion and disc hydration. Stability work that restores muscular support and reduces abnormal joint shear forces. Anti-inflammatory nervous system activation that down-regulates systemic inflammation at its source. These 3 exercises address the actual problem instead of masking the symptom. Your action item is to start tomorrow. Perform the cat-cow for 20 reps, the glute bridge with pause for 15 reps, and the prone cobra for a 60-second hold. Do it every single day for 4 weeks. By week 3, you'll notice the difference. By week 4, you'll be shocked at how much better you feel. By week 8, you'll have completely reversed whatever joint pain you're experiencing. Now I understand that consistency is hard. Life is busy, you're tired, you have competing demands. But I'm going to be direct. 5 minutes daily for better joint health is the best investment you can make. I've seen hundreds of men your age make this commitment, and every single one of them has seen dramatic improvements. The pain relief is real. The improved mobility is real. The improved quality of life is real. And it only requires 5 minutes daily. That's less than the time it takes to brush your teeth twice. The return on investment is staggering. You're trading 5 minutes daily for pain-free joints, improved mobility, and the ability to move your body without limitation for the rest of your life. That's an incredible deal. The long-term sustainability of this approach is important to understand. These 3 exercises aren't a short-term fix. They're not something you do for 4 weeks and then stop. They're lifestyle integration. I perform these 3 movements every single day. Even when I travel, even when I'm busy, they take 5 minutes. They're non-negotiable. Because the moment you stop doing them, the compensatory patterns return. Your spine loses mobility. Your hips lose stability. Your inflammation returns. So these are permanent additions to your routine. But the investment is so small, and the return is so large that it's not a burden. It's a gift. It's the difference between living pain-free and living in chronic pain. That's a bargain. I've trained hundreds of men in your age group, and I can tell you with certainty, the ones who implement these 3 movements daily and stick with them long-term completely eliminate their joint pain. The ones who do them inconsistently or who do them for a few weeks and then stop don't see sustained improvements. Consistency is the variable. Daily practice. Every single day. No exceptions. That commitment produces results. Inconsistent practice doesn't. If you want deeper dives into mobility work, stability training, and anti-inflammatory movement patterns, subscribe to the channel. We have extensive content on joint health, connective tissue adaptation, and the science of reversing age-related degeneration. I'm Grant Harlow, and I'll see you in the next one. Strength has no expiration date.